Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome. This is your regular scheduled meeting of the Auctioneer Commission. Today is May 16th. Let me go ahead and call this to order and then do a roll call. Kimball Sterling. Here. Jeff Morris.
Here.
Dwayne Rogers.
Here.
Ed Knight.
Here.
Larry Sims. All right. We do have quorum chair, so we'll proceed with me if that's all right with you. Let's go ahead and do the notice of meeting. Notice of the May 16, 2022 meeting of the Auctioneer Commission, including date, time, and location, has been noticed on the website since August 16, 2021. Additionally, this month's agenda has been posted on the website since May 9th, 2022. Let's go ahead and take a look at the agenda, and also just keep in mind, too, I just give these reminders to everyone, since we're back in the building now. If you don't see that little red light on, we can't hear you. So if you just make sure you take it off mute and put it in speaker mode there and then lean into your mic, that'd be great. All right. For the agenda, you have that there before you. Is there any comments as to the agenda, any edits or revisions that you'd like to make to the agenda? All right. Hearing none, we'll take a motion to accept the agenda as printed. Do we have such a motion?
Accepted.
We got a motion from Mr. Kimball. Do we have a second? Got a second from Mr. Morris. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, the agenda is approved. Moving on to the February minutes. Any comments as to the February minutes? Any edits, revisions in that regard?
Accept them.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Sterling to accept the February minutes. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We got a second from Mr. Rogers. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we've approved the February minutes. We'll get that posted on the website. We are now here for the rulemaking portion.
No way.
Attention, attention. An emergency has been recorded in this building. Please cease operations.
We'll pause for just a moment, step outside, we'll lock up the door, and then we'll come back here in just a moment.
Fire exit stairway. Do not use elevators. Do not use elevators.
They're supposed to schedule this.
All right, that was apparently that was a test, or Larry pulled the alarm. Not sure which, but either way, we're back. So all things are well. So where we left off was the rulemaking hearing, and so we'll pick up from there. One thing, keep in mind, these are rules that we've already passed. So we just have to go through the regulatory flexibility addendum and all of the things that we're going to file in response to the questions that they'll need to accept these into and to memorialize these into our official rules. So without further ado, I'll turn to Anna and let her pick up from there.
Hold on 1 moment. This rulemaking hearing is called to order. My name is Anna Matlock, and I serve as Associate General Counsel in the Department of Commerce and Insurance, Division of Regulatory Boards, and I represent the Tennessee Auctioneer Commission. Would the agency representatives who are present introduce themselves for the record?
I'm Assistant Director Glenn Kopchik. I've got charge over the Auctioneer Commission, and then the board commission members, if you would, just we'll start with Mr. Rogers. You just state your name for the record.
Dwayne Rogers. Jeff Morris.
Ed Knight.
Kimball Sterling. Larry Sims.
All right, thank you.
Today is Monday, May 16th, 2022. This rulemaking hearing is taking place pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated Section 4-5-204 in Conference Room 1B of Davy Crockett Tower, 500 James Robertson Parkway, Nashville, Tennessee, and also available by electronic means via Microsoft Teams, which can be located on the Commission's website www.tn.gov/regbboards/auctioneers/public-information.html. On this page, the link for access to this rulemaking hearing via Microsoft Teams can be found in the chart located in the middle of the web page in the second row with the date 5/16/2022 and the location column under the words Nashville, Tennessee, labeled Connect. The purpose of this rulemaking hearing is to solicit comments on the rule amendments to the rules and regulation of the Tennessee Auctioneer Commission. The proposed rules amend certain requirements for public automobile auctioneers, specifically following a statutory change that went into effect on October 1st, 2021. The rules amend the age requirements for application from 21 to 18 years of age. Additionally, the rules clarify the licensure requirement for public automobile auction licenses. The Auctioneer Commission and the Motor Vehicle Commission have dual licensing jurisdiction for the public automobile auctioneers and public automobile auctions. An Attorney General opinion issued in 2009 opined that the motor vehicle dealer license required for public automobile auctions must be issued in the individual name of the public automobile auctioneer. This amendment will provide
You've been
clarification
muted.
for
To
the
unmute
public
yourself, press
automobile auction
*6.
and public automobile auctioneer licensees. As written, the rule does not directly address who or what is required to be licensed by the Tennessee Motor Vehicle Commission. A rule is defined as an agency statement of general applicability that implements or prescribes law or policy, or describes the procedures or practice requirements of the agency. Proposed rules are filed with the Office of the Secretary of State. Notice is given to the public for comment, and a rulemaking hearing is held. Upon conclusion of the hearing and adoption of the proposed rules, the rules are forwarded to the Attorney General's office for review of legality. If approved, they are filed with the Office of the Secretary of State, which is responsible for publication, and the Government Operations Committee of the General Assembly. The rules must stay in the Secretary of State's office for 90 days, then end of which time will be the effective date. Those members of the public wishing to speak and appearing in person should place their name on the sign-in sheet to the left located on the podium. Those members of the public wishing to speak and appearing via Microsoft Teams should put their name in the chat box. Oral comments will not be accepted by those who have not written their name on the sign-in sheet or typed their name in the chat box. Is there anyone else that desires to offer oral comments but has not written their name on the sign-in sheet or typed their name in the chat box? Seeing that there are none, for those attending this hearing, I would call your attention to the table located directly behind me to the right. On this table, you will find red-line copies of the rule amendments addressed in today's rulemaking hearing. The notice of rulemaking hearings included the entire text of the proposed rules and were published on the Tennessee Administrative Register website on February 3rd, 2022. Mr. Kopchak, what additional notice was given to the affected individuals or groups?
It was published on, of course, there was a notice that was sent out to those on Verify and those that have signed up as well.
I will summarize the substance of the proposed rules into the record. Rule 0160-01-0.251A public automobile auction and public automobile auctioneer license is amended by deleting 21, number 21, years of age and replacing it with 18 years of age, so that as amended, Rule 0160-01-0.25 1A shall read, reached at least 18 years of age. Additionally, Rule 0160-01-0.252I, Public Automobile Auction and Public Automobile Auctioneer License, is amended by adding the following language, so that as amended, Rule 0160-01-0.252I shall read, the public automobile auction has displayed on its premises a valid motor vehicle dealer license from the Tennessee Motor Vehicle Commission issued in the individual name of the public automobile auctioneer. And as the agency hears public comments on the proposed rules, I, as moderator, reserve the right to limit such comments if they become repetitive. Before I take comments, I will read any comments that are received via email prior to this hearing. To date, I have not received comments from the public via email pertaining to the rules for discussion at today's rulemaking hearing. Mr. Kopchak, were any written comments received by the Commission's office regarding these rules?
We have not received any additional comments.
I do not see any public comment names on the sign-in sheet. Mr. Hunter, do you see any names in the chat box on Microsoft Teams? Hold on one moment.
John, can you hear us? Stand by. We're just waiting on confirmation on the team side. John, can you hear us? John, can you hear us?
Okay, I can confirm there are no comments in Microsoft Teams. So I've observed no comments for the rulemaking hearing. So lastly, there are several measures I will need to adopt by motion and roll call vote as required by TCA Section 4-5-222. First, I will need a motion to adopt the hearing rule language as amended. Each vote will need to be done by roll call.
Make a motion to adopt.
We have a motion from Mr. Knight. We have a second from Mr. Sterling. Since it'll have to be roll call vote being a rulemaking hearing, we'll go down the line then. Dwayne Rogers,
Yes.
Jeff Morris,
Yes.
Ed Knight,
Yes.
Kimball Sterling, Larry Sims. All right, thank you.
Next, I'll read the regulatory flexibility addendum pursuant to TCA Section 4-5-401 through 4-5-404. Prior to initiating the rulemaking process, all agencies shall conduct a review of whether a proposed rule or okay, let's try again. Whether a proposed rule affects small business. The proposed rules do not affect small businesses directly. The rule amendments will make licensure easier for younger Tennesseans and certain motor vehicle commission and auctioneer licensees. Therefore, the impact, if any, would be positive for small businesses and open opportunities to attract new customers. As these rule amendments make it easier for certain affected individuals to become licensed public automobile auctioneers, the rule amendments may help attract economic activity to Tennessee. Clarifying the licensure requirements for public automobile auctioneers may permit current licensees that previously believed they did not have the proper licensure requirements the option to consider or obtain this license. The Commission knows of no other less burdensome, less intrusive, or less costly alternative methods of achieving this purpose and objectives of the proposed rules. The proposed amendments would require minimal, if any, costs for compliance. These rule amendments may be similar to current rules and regulations in other jurisdictions that regulate the auctioneer industry. This allows Tennessee to share consistency with other jurisdictions for license portability and ease of use for current and future licensees. The Commission does not foresee any impact to consumers with the promulgation of the proposed rule amendments. An exemption for small businesses would not be beneficial. I'll now need a motion to adopt the regulatory flexibility addendum.
All right, that was as read. Do we have a motion to accept the regulatory flexibility addendum?
Make a motion to accept.
We got a motion from Mr. Knight. Do we have a second?
Second.
We got a second from Mr. Rogers. Roll call vote then. Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Sterling? And Mr. Sims?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
I will now read the impact on local government statement pursuant to TCA Section 4-5-228. The Tennessee Auctioneer Commission foresees no impact on any local governments. I will now need a motion to adopt the impact on local government statement.
We got a motion from Mr. Sterling to accept the impact on local government statement. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Knight. Roll call vote. Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Sterling? Mr. Sims?
Yes.
I will now read the answers to the questions required by the Joint Government Operations Committee. All agencies, upon filing a rule, must also submit the following pursuant to TCA Section 4-5-226I1. A is a brief summary of the rule and a description of all relevant changes and previous regulations effectuated by such rule. The proposed rules amend certain requirements for public automobile auctioneers, specifically following a statutory change that went into effect on October 1st, 2021. The rules amend the age requirement for application from 21 to 18 years of age. Additionally, the rules clarify the licensure requirement for public automobile licenses. The Auctioneer Commission and Motor Vehicle Commission have dual licensing jurisdiction for public automobile auctioneers and public automobile auctions. An Attorney General opinion issued in 2009 opined that the motor vehicle dealer license required for public automobile auctions must be issued in the individual name of the public automobile auctioneer. This amendment will provide clarification for public automobile auction and public automobile auctioneer licensees. As written, the rule does not directly address who or what is required to be licensed by the Tennessee Motor Vehicle Commission. B. A citation to and brief description of any federal law or regulation or state law or regulation mandating promulgation of such rule or establishing guidelines relevant thereto. There are no known federal or state laws or regulations mandating promulgation. C. Identification of persons, organizations, corporations, or governmental entities most directly affected by this rule and whether those persons, organizations, corporations, or governmental entities urge adoption or rejection of this rule. These rule amendments impact current and future auctioneer licensees as well as a segment of motor vehicle licensees. Specifically, these amendments directly affect public automobile auctioneers and public automobile auctions. The Commission expects younger Tennesseans pursuing entrance into the public automobile industry, as well as current public automobile auctioneer licensees to be proponents of these amendments. The Commission does not foresee a particular segment of opponents to these rule amendments. D. Identification of any opinions of Attorney General and reporter or any judicial ruling that directly relates to the rule or the necessity to promulgate the rule. These rule amendments are aligned with the 2009 Attorney General opinion on the subject matter of public automobile auctioneers. However, there are no additional known opinions of the Attorney General and reporter or any judicial rulings that directly relate to these amendments. E. An estimate of probable increase or decrease in state or and local government revenues and expenditures, if any, resulting from the promulgation of this rule, and assumptions and reasoning upon which the estimate is based. An agency shall not state that the fiscal impact is minimal if the fiscal impact is more than 2% of the agency's annual budget or $500,000, whichever is less. There is no foreseeable probable increase or decrease in state and local government revenues and expenditures resulting from the promulgation of this rule. Sections F, G, and H request the identification of appropriate agency representatives, provide knowledge. Those individuals are going to be myself, Anna Matlock, Associate General Counsel, and Roxana Gamusio, the Executive Director for the Tennessee Auctioneer Commission. I. Any additional information relevant to the rule proposed for continuation that the committee requests. There is no known additional relevant information. I will now need a motion to adopt the additional information for the Joint Government Operations Committee.
All right, that is the additional information for the Joint Government Operations Committee. We'll need a motion to accept that statement in response to the information that they're requesting. Do we have such a motion? Sure.
Throughout the reading, we say public auction, public auto auction. But, auctions, automobile auctions are still not sold to the public in Tennessee, or they have to be dealers, don't they?
You could have a public automobile auctioneer license and
You
a
got to
dealer's
duly
license.
licensed.
Yeah.
Got to be licensed to do so.
That means when you sell one car out of an estate, you get
You have X number of cars. that you
5
can-
cars or
yeah.
something, but that's crazy,
That rule's still in place.
yeah. It's cars when you're doing maybe something we all.
Can't hear you there. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Legs underneath
That's
this
all right.
thing. You got to get this thing raised up for a 6'9" guy. I do a lot of estate work, and there's no way that we can get by selling 5 cars now, more than 5, unless we get a public auto auction. Is what it's telling us, kind of license. Is that what you're telling us, that we're that the normal estate auctioneer has to get an automobile auctioneering license, not a firm, not a company license, but are you telling the regular auctioneer that we shouldn't do more than the 5 vehicles something that needs to be looked into?
Yeah, for our purposes, we're just addressing this red line rules, but
Okay.
which is just those 2
I
rules.
move we accept them.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. Do we have a second then in that regard?
Second.
Oh, we got a second from Mr. Morris. For a roll call vote then, Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
Mr. Morris,
Yes.
Mr. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Sterling,
Yes.
and then Mr. Sims. All right, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes this rulemaking hearing. Following this hearing, the rules will be put on rulemaking filing form SS-7039, submitted to the governor's office for final review, and then submitted to the attorney general's office for review and approval. Once the attorney general's office signature is obtained, these are filed with the Secretary of State and generally become effective 90 days from the date of filing after receiving a positive recommendation from the Joint Government Operations Committee. Thank you for being here today.
All right, looks like we're done with the rulemaking hearing portion of our agenda, and we'll give our court reporter an opportunity to exit as well, and we appreciate your assistance in that regard. Thank you. As per always, there's always opportunity for discussion for all the things that that affect this industry, and Mr. Sterling, touched on some of those as well, and that's the business of the state, as you know, and why we gather here today, and why we have these rules before us as well. The different associations bring those things to the Hill, and then they roll that out, and then we follow suit with our rulemaking or with our rules to enforce that. So always good discussion in that regard. But I'm glad that we'll get these in the book, since this was given to us by the legislators. These in the recent public chapter. So. I think we're good on that portion. I think we're ready for the education review then. If we wanted to slide over there real quickly and take a look at that. Let's first start with the CE seminar course. Just take a look at that one first. That's a 6-hour course. That's their spring conference.
Tap on the top left to go back.
Yes, sir. Just tap in the center, and then it'll show library, and then you click on that, and then it should give you your
Gotcha.
okay. And we're looking at TAA CE seminar. That's a course application. Of course, you received this in your email already. It's a 6-hour course. Is there any comments in regards to this course?
I'll just say I reviewed it pretty carefully. It looks like, a good course. They've got some good instructors. One of the instructors is actually in the audience with us today. So I move that we approve this course for continuing education.
Right, great. We got a motion by Mr. Morris. We got a second from Mr. Sterling. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, then we can move to the next portion of the education review. You have a TA funding request letter in front of you.
Yeah, now they want us to pay for it.
That's right.
The request is for $4,000, as I understand it. Is that something that comes straight out of our educational fund? If we have the money available to do that, Glenn?
Yes, sir. That's correct. We've funded their last seminar, their 6-hour C seminar. You remember that probably a couple years ago, and then they run that one. Same kind of conference. They're going to offer it in 3 different locations, virtually, simulcast, all of that. So, of course, it'll be made available free to our licensees. So that gives them some more offerings, some more opportunity to do that as well.
I'll make the motion that we approve it.
All right. We have a motion from Mr. Morris. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second from Mr. Knight. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, that's approved, and we'll get that taken care of. Thank you, gentlemen.
Can we have a discussion on that education?
Sure can. Yes, sir.
I realize this body's designed to protect the public.
Correct.
Just want to say, I think as we educate our auctioneers, we are going to protect the public. So more education. Now, 4,000, pretty minimum to educate. I think we need to be more involved in more education. I don't know how we go about that. I'm new to this, second time, so
It's just
forget
we
that.
we have
Pitching
to.
on.
Yeah, no, you're dialing in. We just have to. I don't know what the. I don't recall. We've covered that before. There has to be a minimal amount in the education recovery. It's like 150, 160. Don't quote me on that. We've given that number before, and then of course we try to make sure we keep enough in there for our contracts as well. So we can, of course, take care of those as those come up in newsletter. And of course, Nashville Auction School offers a C seminar course as well. So we want to make sure we have that option. But of course, we want folks into the field a little bit, providing those offerings so we have more availability, more courses. So to your point, that's always a good thing.
run across people that are practicing without a license, and you got to have a license. Well, that's our fault. Is I guess Tennessee is not educating people. Yeah, you got to be licensed to have an auction.
Yep.
So I think we need to invest a little more in that.
Now these courses are for the licensees themselves. For as far as information for those that may be unlicensed, they of course reach out to our office, and then we sort of help navigate that as well. We try to put some items on the website, but of course, if you're unlicensed, you're not going to go to our website particularly.
Yeah, I understand
So
that.
when we're out in the public, that's more of an outreach piece where those opportunities become available.
Oh, it's also our responsibility as members of the commission, if we see something like that happen, to let them know about it.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Good comments. I
Well,
appreciate that.
I was just wanted to point out, as a regulatory, we're kind of looked at as a regulatory board, but I think we need to push education. Nashville Auction School is doing it, so how can we help them do more of that? Or the TAA, how can we help them do more of that?
Great comments. Appreciate it. Other comments on education review? All right. I think we're ready for our meeting dates, 2023. We always got to get started early, as you know, because we got to reserve those rooms, and that may look a little different next year. They're going to be renovating this room and 1A as well. So we may find ourselves for some of these meetings, we're going to over at the Post Commission over on Lebanon Pike. Don't worry about that. You'll have all the information. We'll walk you through every piece of that should that come. That'll actually be easier to access than probably Davy Crockett would be downtown Nashville. But until then, we'll dial up this room. We're going to reserve these rooms anyway, because if it takes quite a while to get this thing going, they tell how that goes. You get a contractor in the house and they tell you, 6 weeks, and that turns into like 4 months. So if that happens, we'll be fine. We'll be set up right here. But well, if they get things going, then we'll end up at post. Right now, though, if you would take a look at your meeting dates. All right. Right. Looking at February 27th of next year, May 15th, August 21st, November 20th. That's in sync with your current schedule right now, sidestepping a holiday. So, but that'll be right in line with what you've already experienced. One other thing too, something I've been thinking about with all of our meetings is perhaps, and I just want to get a feel from the commission, what's your thoughts on it? It's just syncing all the commissions that usually run a couple hours. No, we have some that run all day. They just, so they're started at 8. But if it would be easier for you to make that transition logistically, we could start at 10. It's up to you. Is there any thoughts about that?
I'd rather get it done and get out of here.
Earlier better. Okay, that's fine with us then. 9 o'clock as it is, it'll remain at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, if you want to move it to a Tuesday versus a Monday, that's fine with me too. But that's
early risers here. Then it sounds like that's all right. All right, so 9 o'clock it'll remain. So those dates are those. If those dates will work for everyone, we'll calendar those, get those on the website. We'll just need a motion in that regard. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We got one from Mr. Morris.
Second.
Got a second from Mr. Sterling. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we'll get that posted calendar, and you can go ahead and hold on to that sheet that I sent out to you and just put that in your calendar, and then those are our dates for next year. All right. All right, looks like we're ready for the director's report. Let's take a look at the budget. This is for informational purposes only. All right. At our last meeting, we covered the trending through November. Although we are in deficit for both of those months, December and looks like, October and November. I know that those are common if you compare with the last 3 historical years, the data below. But so we already talked about that the last meeting. So going forward, we haven't looked at December through March yet. That was the only unreported data at the time. We didn't have that data. Obviously, we couldn't look into the future. So now that we're looking past, I didn't see anything that jumped out at me. There wasn't anything that just sort of that I thought was irregular or seemed to step out of the regular pattern. Is there any questions anyone had on that? I'll just give you the rundown. It looks like we're running in surplus with a total surplus of $25,000, roughly $500 right now for the year, which is fairly good considering we weren't sure what was going to happen with the firms and galleries when that went away. So it looks like so far we're doing okay. Nothing there that seems to alarm me. Is there any questions as that relates? Okay. Yes, sir.
When we get to the legal here, the question is
All right.
what does it cost us to investigate one of those things? And that comes out of our budget, doesn't it? Like one of the guys that you had to investigate, it's $100 fine, but how much did it cost us to investigate?
Well, that was minimal. That's because if you guys recall at our several meetings ago, we passed the agreed citation, meaning basically like someone gets caught speeding on the side of the road, they issue them a citation. Well, they can come to court or they can just sign off on that citation. Well, the agreed citation does that for us. When we do our review or our audit, if we find folks that attested that yes, I have that CE, but then 30 to 60 days after the fact, they still can't produce that CE, we give them a citation, and that citation is $100 citation. They can sign that, and then they don't come before the board. The only reason why it's on the legal report right now is we don't have that citation yet, so you won't see this on the next legal report. Those will just be that citation. They'll sign that, and then that'll be done. Okay. And we'll dig into those a little bit more, but yeah, that actually is a cost savings for us because then we're not digging into that. If they sign it, that's the end of that, and so we're not litigating that. All right, yeah, good question. Thank you. All right, I think we're ready to move on into one other item I just wanted to touch on. Just an update, nothing to vote on. When considering reciprocity, TCA 6219-117B1 states, The commission may recognize a license issued by any other state to a non-resident auctioneer or affiliate auctioneer if the non-resident auctioneer or affiliate auctioneer is domiciled in the other state that issued the license. The other state reciprocates with this state in a like manner, and the licensure requirements of the other state include the passing of an examination of equal or higher standards than those required by this state. So in accordance with that standard, I just read that for the record and as a primer, but in accordance with that standard, New Hampshire and Massachusetts will be added to those states for which we have reciprocity. As you know, our standards changed a little while back, and so we're adding a couple more states for reciprocity. That'll be New Hampshire and Massachusetts. That's just informational purposes for your digestion, but we're done with that piece. I think, unless there's any questions, I think we can move on to legal.
Is there another state you could add to that?
We've already got a pretty exhaustive list, or it's posted on our website. So to that list, we added 2 more states is what we're doing there. But if you were to go to our frequently asked questions post, you'll get a whole list of all those states that we have reciprocity to. All right, good questions. I think we're ready for the legal portion then.
It's me again. So I'm still covering the legal report till we get another attorney to do that. So as Glenn stated before, you'll see there are 6 matters on the legal report.
All right, so let me interject here. You've got like 4 of these that we've done an audit on continuing education on those cases.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Are those just some that y'all just happen to check, or you get a report on, or how did they come about?
We do a quarterly audit, and so every quarter we run that, and so those are the ones that we identified as folks that had not had C, or we give them the opportunity. When you renew, you can post your C. You don't have to, because, right. But if you're audited and then you're at that point you have to produce your C, and they weren't able to produce their C within the allotted period, so that's where the fine's coming from.
All right, well, so for those cases, Anna, that you have, that's all they are, just audits, and they've agreed to a citation, then I would move that we accept that recommendation on those cases in the legal report, unless we got to do them one by one.
Where?
Second is vote.
Well, I tell you what, we'll just we'll read them all into the record then, and then if I tell you what, if you don't mind, could you just read the each case number into the record with the recommendation, and then the remaining 1 or 2 that don't include that, we can discuss those.
Right.
Okay. 2022-04841. That's a recommendation of a $100 agreed citation. Number 1. Number 3, 2022-008281. It's a recommendation of a $100 agreed citation. Number 4, 2022-008284. 2022-008281. Recommendation of a $100 agreed citation. Number 5, 2022-016-811, recommendation of a $100 agreed citation. Number 6, 2022-017401, a $100 agreed citation.
All right. With that in mind, we'll accept a motion to accept council's recommendation for those 5 cases just read into the record. Do we have such a motion?
So moved.
We got a motion from Mr. Morris. Do we have a second? We got a second from Mr. Sterling. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, that leaves us just case number 2. Have any questions regarding case number 2 or comments that you'd like to make?
I'll read this one into the record. Complainant is a Tennessee resident. Respondent is a principal auctioneer. Complainant states respondent came to their home uninvited for the purpose of auctioning farm equipment. Complainant alleges respondent was not interested in the farming equipment, but the 300 plus acres. Respondent left complainant with the contract to read and review. Complainant states as they were grieving a loss when respondent and others returned weeks later, they were depressed, anxious, and overwhelmed, and felt pressure to sign respondent's contract. Complainant provides after signature, respondent began tearing down farms, fences, and other areas without their consent. Complainant later decided not to sell and had their attorney contact respondent. Complainant states later they contacted police when respondent continued bulldozing of buildings after complainant requested respondent stop. The parties went through mediation and apparently did not resolve the matter. Complainant closes stating they believe respondent paid another individual to convince complainant to sell and that respondent's license expired in April of 2021 and was not renewed until August 11, 2021. Complainant also states respondent misrepresented themselves by stating this was an absolute/no reserve auction. Respondent answered the complaint stating they were contacted back in March 2021 about conducting an auction for complainant. In May of 2021, respondent states they came to an agreement with complainant and a contract was signed to liquidate the farm and equipment that the complainant inherited. Respondent states their company worked to clean up the property and then complainant stopped the cleanup and called the police. Respondent also states how they cleaned up mobile homes that were quarantined by the state and worked with another company to safely do this. Respondent alleges a family moved in with complainant and convinced complainant not to sell when previously complainant had no hesitations. Respondent stated the auction was scheduled for November of 2021, but then sought legal counsel after being told not to return the complainant's property. Based on the information provided in the complaint, counsel researched respondent's license status during the relevant time period. Respondent's license expired on April 18, 2021, and remained expired through August 10, 2021. During this period, respondent entered into a contract titled Auction Contract and Employment with complainant that was signed on May 3, 2021. Respondent has also provided various receipts of other tasks completed related to complainant's property. However, these tasks are related to matters outside of the Commission's jurisdiction. This also applies to complainant's potential breach of contract or contact with law enforcement. Counsel finds no evidence to support complainant's assertion that respondent misrepresented themselves as no auction took place, and complainant provides no supporting evidence. However, respondent's license was expired for 4 months. As one of the contracts was signed during this time period, counsel recommends respondent be assessed a $250 civil penalty for unlicensed activity. My recommendation is a $250 civil penalty.
This sounds like a legal matter between the parties, not a member of the commission, but I agree with what you said, so I would recommend that we take your recommendation and make a motion to that effect.
We have a motion to accept council's recommendation for $250 civil penalty for case number 2022-008191. And that motion comes from Mr. Morris. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second from Mr. Knight. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none. That takes care of the legal report. I think we're ready for legislative updates or any other updates Anna may have.
Okay, I have one additional update for everyone related to the Macklemore litigation matter. So on May 3rd, Judge Eli Richardson issued a permanent injunction barring the commission, agents, employees, attorneys, and all persons in active concert or participation from applying Tennessee's auctioneer laws related to sales and transactions via auction conducted by electronic exchange. Electronic exchange is understood to mean the same as its non-statutory definition of online auctions. This bar is permanent and applied immediately and is in effect right now. In the order, Judge Richardson stated that the term electronic, as used in the statute, results in an extraterritorial application of auctioning statutes and is in violation of the Dormant Commerce Clause. As defined by Black's Law Dictionary, extraterritorial means occurring outside a particular state or country beyond the geographical limits of a particular jurisdiction. The Dormant Commerce Clause prohibits state legislation that discriminates against interstate commerce, whether it is the purpose or effect of discriminating against interstate commerce. In short, it is the application of and analysis of the Dormant Commerce Clause and the permanent injunction that is most concerning beyond the auctioneering statutes. The language provided in the memorandum opinion appears that it may have unintended consequences to other programs and divisions attached to the department, but possibly to other state departments. Therefore, it is likely there will be an appeal. Based on the permanent injunction, Judge Richardson stated the case is now considered closed, and this is the final judgment. So essentially what the order stated is how the statute was written related to electronic exchange. It went beyond Tennessee. And so if we're governing matters beyond Tennessee, that was too far. So that would be the extraterritorial, which would be beyond our state or other jurisdictions. And so that would be the extraterritorial meaning. And the Dormant Commerce Clause says that we cannot have legislation that goes against interstate commerce. So if we are governing commerce between Tennessee and Kentucky, so if someone was to do an online auction living in Kentucky but in Tennessee, and no, if someone was to do an online auction living in Kentucky but people are in Tennessee, that would be considered interstate commerce, and we can't do that. So basically, online exchange and online auctions, we can't do anything with that in the statute. So that was pretty much understood, like from the beginning in the lawsuit, that we kind of weren't going to get the online auction part back in. The thing about it that the department and the Attorney General's office is the most concerned about is kind of how the judge came to the decision of applying the extraterritorial meaning in the Dormant Commerce Clause. It's like a very, I would say, a unique application. And so because of that, the department and the legal department here, I read it, AG's office has read it, they're concerned about how it reads And because of that, they think that it's worth appealing because of it. So today, my job was to bring this back to you, explain what the permanent injunction meant, facilitate some kind of conversation, and then ultimately get your opinions on what you think about an appeal.
Let me tell you this: the COVID changed everything. Auctioneers went from doing a lot of live auctions to doing almost no live auctions, and most all of our auctions now are online. I know in my business is. I don't know about the rest of the state, or the rest of the auctioneers, but if we are not able to have any jurisdiction over any auctioneer doing an online auction, we might as well not be in business, because that's just about every auction. So I would hope that the state would appeal that and figure out a way to at least govern people that are in this state doing online auctions and how they're doing online auctions, because there is a lot of room for bad actors to take advantage of the public on an online auction, and it gets very intricate in the back end of these auction platforms. But they can manipulate these auctions if they want to the detriment of the public. So I would hope that we would appeal them.
Who is overlooking the process in the event that who regulates it, I guess? Is there any regulation at all, or is it just Old West style running it?
So in Tennessee, we don't regulate electronic exchanges. We're enjoined, so we cannot.
It's my opinion that, I mean, we all, have common sense, and we know an auction is an auction, and I find it hard to believe that wouldn't fall under this jurisdiction here. I mean, that's what we're put in place to do, is to watch over the public, and I can see a door being, wide open for that to be taken advantage of without having any regulatory person looking over that.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, of course, I agree with these guys having regulation, but you're going to have a hard time regulating guys having Facebook auctions. How are you going to regulate Facebook? How are you going to regulate eBay? That's what's kind of snowballed all this. Not that I don't disagree. I think there need to be some accountability. If you're going to perform an auction, you need to have some kind of accountability to somebody. There's Joe Smith out here. I think we spent too much time trying to keep people from coming into business to kind of protect our state. A lot of other states, I had trouble going to Mississippi trying to get an auction license, and it was just, I thought I was going to have to give up one of my children to get one. I mean, it was ridiculous. But their purpose was to keep other auctioneers out of the state. Well, that interstate commerce with online auctions, I don't like online auctions. I'm a live auctioneer, but I do them. So, we're going to have an auction near Atlanta, Georgia pretty soon, and I want my Tennessee buyers buying them. So, I got to have that interstate commerce. So, I mean, it's worth looking into, definitely, to try to regulate it, but I don't know how you do it. It's just kind of the wild, wild west when it comes to online auctions.
I think the appeal is the right thing to do. I think you've made a good decision there. The AG goes along with it. It seems to me that we could regulate. No, we couldn't either. Never mind. I don't think we could do. I was going to say, I thought maybe we could regulate just the Tennessee auctioneers. Is that a possibility?
That's not out of the question.
Yeah, if you just regulate the Tennessee auctioneers through the commission on online auctions, we would have jurisdiction, wouldn't we? Now, we wouldn't have a way to do something to a guy from Virginia or North Carolina. But if you were licensed in Tennessee itself, if you were a licensed auctioneer, we could at least govern those people, couldn't we?
Like they're so as the statute is currently written, it just says online auctions, period. Does not clarify any kind of state parameters. So that's why the extraterritorial part was brought up. And I think both of the parties understood that it went beyond the bounds of Tennessee. And so that is something that if we were to appeal, that we would be looking at. So like nothing is completely out of the question. Right now, we're just having a discussion on whether what your opinions are regarding the appeal.
Certified Tennessee online auctioneer. And the public would know that you're certified through the commission if you're a Tennessee auctioneer and you're governed by the commission. Just an idea.
Have there, Mr. Morris?
I was just going to say that the interstate part of it is that if we have an auction in Tennessee, we have buyers from all over the country. I mean, every one of our online auctions, we have buyers from literally all 48 states, and some international as well. But that doesn't concern this. But you're going to have interstate activity on an online auction. I don't care how you do it. So I don't know how you get around that part of it.
Well, it sounds like I'm reading that there's a general consensus to appeal, and that seems to be the will of the commission. Is there any objection in that regard? No? Okay. Then I imagine, unless you hear otherwise, that's probably the intent. That seems to be the direction of where this is going. So, okay. Any other comments, Ms. Matlock? I think that leaves us new business. Was there any new business?
I called you about 5 weeks ago, and I'd heard that the sales tax on the states had been dropped. The legislature had passed that bill. Do we know anything about that?
Yes. That the Public Chapter 783 was passed into law, and it went into effect on April 8th. So, auctioneers are back where you were before. So, many thanks to TAA and those that ran the legislation.
I understand we are considered a facilitator and we're not a sales tax collector as such.
That's correct.
That's correct.
So is that saying we don't have to collect sales tax in just any auction?
That's specific to a different type of auction, a state.
Well, estates were going to be taxed, but they're not going to be taxed at this point, as I understand it from an auction standpoint.
It's any items at auction.
Any items at auction?
Well, if TAA, we have a representative here, they can flesh that out a little bit.
Consignment.
We're now out of the sales tax business.
Obviously, there's more qualified people. I'm Shane with the Tennessee Auctioneers Association. The way that the legislation was written, it was to get us back in the tax-free estate business. I don't think that the legislation, as it was passed, exempted us from collecting tax on taxable items outside of estate situations. And it also is important to note, and this is some data that we're trying to get out soon, it's important to note that it does not exempt you from estate situations online. If you're conducting an online auction and it's an estate auction, there's still all of that legislation out there that governs you. The bill that we passed was to eliminate us from being an online facilitator for live estate auctions in the state of Tennessee. If you're selling things out of state online that come from an estate situation, you still fall within all that other jurisdiction of where it's being received, where you're taking possession. But if you're conducting a genuine estate auction in the state of Tennessee, like we had been exempt since 1976, we're now exempt as well. There's another thing that was important to note, and I think Anna can probably speak on this as well. Coins. There was some legislation that was passed that now exempted coins. We used to always have to collect on coins, even if they were a part of an estate, because it was a precious metal. There's some legislation that passed recently that we no longer have to do that either. So if you're selling coins at an auction and they're estate coins because they're a precious metal, you don't have to tax those, which is significant for us auctioneers because we know a lot of our coin buyers are buying based on melt price. Once you tack a tax on there, they're usually out. So that's significant as well. I've got the bill numbers and all, and I think that Addison, I don't know if she's on or not, but Addison can speak on it, give you the actual bill so you can track the, when it passed. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCarroll. All right. Is there any other new business then in that regard? All right. Well, we have we can entertain a motion to adjourn. Do we have such a motion?
Go ahead, Larry.
All right. There you go. We got a motion from Mr. Sims to adjourn. Do we have a second? Got a second there? Got a second from Mr. Knight. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.